Well, good afternoon. It's Friday, April 24th. Dan Murphy here, Seth Rivers on the other side. We thought we'd have a little fun today and kind of give ourselves some respective, uplifting, feel good on a Friday, even though it's raining in Fishkill, New York, and dreary. Um, just an uplifting background. So I'm at the ocean. I wish I was really, but it's certainly nice to see in the background. And Seth chose Hogwarts from Harry Potter. So
Well, I figured it's a magical day whenever it's a Friday, so let's keep the good vibes going.
absolutely. Um, so we wanted to kind of bring you up to date. This is actually our fifth video that we've actually recorded since beginning of the year. We've gotten a lot of great responses from it, and we've seen the statistics, and many of you and friends and family members that you've passed it on to have watched these as well. So obviously it's a great learning tool. We're going to continue to keep these coming to you as long as you keep watching them, and so far so good. Um, so let's get right into it today. As you kind of watch this weekend, basically we want to kind of start with just kind of where we are. I mean, but let's not go right into what's going on in the market. Let's kind of start off a little bit and just see a little bit about what's going on in humanity, right? So, I know a lot of us are getting to the point now, me included, Seth included. Seth's got two young ones running around the house at home. I remember those days like it was yesterday, and our daughter's home with us from college. She's a senior in college, didn't get to finishing up basically on just video classes and no graduation. So I think it's very easy for us to all feel somewhat mad at the world, and obviously isolated, and we have our fleeting moments where we try and realize that things can be so much worse. But that only goes so far. And certainly, prior to, I guess, a week ago, when we thought that this would maybe be over on April 1st, May 1st, now it's more like May 15th. But you hear other states that basically are going to close till the end of May. I mean, Wisconsin just announced that today. And there's a couple other with it. Um, so it's not going to get much better, but certainly, today when you look at it, 72% of the people basically say that really they've had extreme disruptions in their lives. I mean, and 74% of people believe worse is yet to come. And we've got, our oldest son is supposed to be, getting married on June 6th down in Nashville, Tennessee. That's pretty much over. They're trying to pick some new dates. Very disappointed, of course. But certainly we're glad it's going to continue. And there are worse things, but a lot of plans have been changed. I'm sure we've all missed some major things. I mean, missing kids, missing grandkids. My mom lives 5 miles from us. She's doing a great job keeping herself isolated. We'll drop a meal off every once in a while. We try and do these video conferences as a family, every week, so that she, sees some faces. But it's very difficult. So, 39% people have lost a job or had substantial reduction of income. Almost 80% believe that we are in a recession, and Seth and I certainly will allude to that, but we think we are as well. 82% of people feel that that the healthcare system is just overrun, and almost half of us kind of feel very depressed. Very mental health is very negative right now, and so it certainly is something that we really have to kind of keep in mind. So there's the humanity of it, and of course, we deal with the finances a lot with it, but there's more than just the finances part of this too. I guess, that this slide is, pretty important just to kind of, let people know that what you're feeling is, very, very emotional, and certainly very real for everybody. We're all going through it at different points, and maybe it's a little easier for me. I mean, my wife Sally says that, what do I have to worry about? I'm still going to work pretty much every day. Up until a week ago, I was still golfing once a week. So she said basically there's no difference in my life whatsoever. But there is, I mean, we're not able to be with family. We're not able to do our normal routine. My gym that I go to almost every day, it's closed. I mean, so we're relegated to the basement, and we fixed up a little place where we can work out, but we're all kind of out of our element, and we all are, for the most part, very, routine driven from the time that we're kids, right, to the times that we're adults. So there's a lot of things that you're going to feel today that basically are really concerning, and you want to be aware of them, especially, if you're losing sleep, if you're, obviously you're maybe putting on more weight because you're not as active, or God forbid you're, alcohol. I mean, not that we're alcoholics by any stretch of the means, but we all find ourselves drinking a lot more. Happy hour starts a little earlier. So those things can obviously be very, spiraling for people as well. Things to do to support yourself. I mean, try and do some video conferences with kids, FaceTime, see the grandkids, however you can. But trying to do that is very important. Getting plenty of sleep, exercise. If you can do some basic things just to get the heart rate going, you're going to feel good. You got those endorphins that you'll release in the body that gives you more energy. It's all about kind of getting yourself out of that, out of that slight depression that a lot of people are kind of going through right now. Healthy relationships, listen, everybody's home. I mean, if you can, set up times to spend with kids, grandkids, each other, talk about meaningful things, reconnections, positive thinking, read a good book. I mean, connect with people, trying to keep active, trying to, still stay stimulated in some way, shape, or fashion is obviously very important too. Some things that are very helpful as well, read a book. I mean, we do a lot of reading all the time in this business, but, at nighttime and on weekends, since we're not able to do things we're doing. I mean, I used to read all the time. I used to have a Nook, and basically, kind of got away from that. And so now, I got a Kindle from Amazon. I mean, it's just been great. It's really reinvigorated my passion for reading other things besides work types of things now. So, read some great books. So, basically, that's really important. Watching television, I've never been one that does that. Binge watch Netflix. I'm not really much of a binge watcher, but, a lot of people, get a lot of, it's a great way to kill time. There are certain things that, I don't mind watching TV for a couple hours, but, doing puzzles. My wife and daughter got onto some puzzle. They ordered some 1,000-piece puzzle that they started working on around Easter, and so that really killed a lot of time for them. And they had a great, a lot of laughs together, and just trying to, find the pieces for this puzzle. And spring cleaning. I mean, I'm pretty anal retentive, so, spring cleaning is really important. We pick a cabinet in the kitchen each day to kind of just tackle, just so that you can kind of feel some reward, that I feel good. I feel some kind of self accomplishment that we got a couple things done today, projects that you really haven't gotten around to doing, maybe doing a photo album or cleaning out your closets, recaulking the bathroom. I mean, some kind of hobby, family time, reinvent yourself. I mean, there's a lot of things to do online now. They're offering a tremendous amount of things online, a lot of webinars that you can do. We found a lot of great workouts. I mean, I love going to the gym, and especially because I work out with friends all the time. But, I found a lot of great different workouts too online that, the different gyms have offered us. And so, so there's definitely a lot of things that you can do to take advantage of right now. Without sports, having access to different things like that, without your normal routine of getting out of the house and trying to do, the things that you normally do in your normal routine, try and pick something, if you go to bed at nighttime, kind of know what you're going to do the next day, write it down. I want to accomplish these 2 or 3 things tomorrow. I'm going to, maybe watch a show on Netflix. I'm going to try and read a book or a chapter of a book, and I'm going to clean out that closet, or I'm going to pick a drawer in the kitchen or the study or somewhere to do. So if you go to bed each night and write down 2 or 3 things to do the next day, that can really be very good for you, because you've got a purpose to get out of bed the next day. Start going through that, and believe me, you'll be surprised how good you'll feel about that day when you get to the end of it. You'll still be a little sad, a little melancholy, but basically, for the most part, while you've got that absence of friends, family, colleagues during this period of time, we've got to kind of find a way to fill that. So hopefully these, different suggestions will be good for you to kind of just pick and choose as you kind of see fit. So that is really important. I mean, we really, care about you. We worry about a lot of you, both mentally, but also physically as well, especially with the coronavirus, how contagious it is for people that are, elderly or, have compromised immunities. My mom's one of those people. So, typically making sure that you're taking care of yourselves, that your family is. Seth and I were just talking about it before we got on, that, we're getting to the point now where there's enough people out there, especially in New York, that have had this, that we all kind of either know somebody directly that's actually been affected by it, or we know somebody that knows somebody. Our daughter actually, has a good one of her friends at college in her sorority, and both of her grandparents passed away. One got it, gave it to the other, and they're both in their 90s, and they perished within a week of each other. Alone, of course, right? Because they both ended up on the ventilators and never came off. So sad, but it's getting to that point where we all kind of know somebody as we kind of go forward as well. So it's good to kind of keep stay positive, keep those things in mind, and some of the things, especially once we go through the numbers pretty soon, it's starting to get better out there as well. So Seth will kind of bring you through the next slide there.
So overall world cases, this data is as of yesterday, close of business. In the world, there's currently 2.7 million cases with around 192,000 deaths, but the recovery rate is starting to pick up, which is nice to see. The total recovered now stands at 758,000. As we continue on and look at the United States, we're obviously by far the largest infection rate in the world. The good thing, if there is a silver lining, is you can see the new deaths. We've really been hovering around that 2,000 mark daily. We're starting to see more and more declining in the numbers, but also one of the key things that I want to point out on this particular slide is the far right column. You could see the total tests that the United States has done. With all this talk of testing and everything that's going on, we have more than double the next country down, Germany. Russia has 2.4 million, but we have so many more tests that we've done across the board that I kind of question some of the infection rate numbers for some of the other countries, just because by and large, we have put so many more tests into the system. And you see every day in the news cycle how much is actually, they're talking about even more testing. I saw an article yesterday about the antibody testing in New York State, where there was about 14% actually had the coronavirus antibodies, which would suggest that our infection rate in New York would be actually about 10 to 15 times more than what is currently reported. So the nice thing is as we're going forward, we are starting to see a decline and coming down from the peak. But the key thing here is that 2,342 number of new deaths. It's really started to stabilize here. As we go forward, this is a rolling 7 cases per 7-day rolling average. So really what this is showing is, yes, we know the United States has quadrupled the number of cases as any other country, but we really have seen this average peak starting to come down significantly. And that just, it's a product of everyone doing the sacrifices of staying at home, the social distancing. We do anticipate, or for most of the things that we've read, seeing this start to even come down and accelerate even more, which is great, which is why you're starting to see some of the conversations about people and local governments starting to open up for business again. But by no means are we out of this. I mean, just by the sheer volume, you could see that our 7-day rolling average is about 30,000 new cases. I mean, that's still significantly higher than any other country. So we don't think that we're by any means out of the woods, but it's nice to see and to feel like there is that light of the tunnel at the end of the tunnel that's coming by getting over that hump. So the current economic situation, one of the things that, if you've met with us over the past years, we talk a lot about our leading economic indicators and how they've looked prior to going into a recession. And this is a piece that's put out by John Hancock. Basically, you can see on the far right of this graph, these leading economic indicators are 10 different metrics that they judge to give you an idea of how healthy the economy is right now. And mostly why this number has plummeted on the far right down to negative 6.5% is because of jobless claims. Preceding almost every recession that we've been into, economic indicators have turned negative. That happened in 2008. It happened in the dot-com bubble. It happened in the early 90s. It happened in the early 80s. The problem that we really ran into here is both Dan and I believe, and most of our partners believe, that we're currently in a recession. It's just the definition of a recession is 2 straight quarters of 0 or negative GDP growth. So with these jobless claims really spiking the economic indicators down, that's what we believe has really been the catalyst of us believing that we're already currently in a recession. It's just technically we don't have negative GDP growth as far as what has been reported. So if we actually look at those jobless claims going forward, it's been historic. We have a couple of charts here. This one didn't take into account yesterday's numbers. The next one did, but just staggering how high these unemployment claims are. The previous record was around 260,000 per week. The past 5 weeks has multiplied that by 10 times to 20 times, depending on the week. Just yesterday, there was another 4.4 million people filing for unemployment insurance. The previous week, over 5 million. The previous 2 weeks before that, over 6 million. And the week, really the first week that we started to see the numbers spike up, you can see just over 3 million. So you're talking about just a huge, huge number of people applying for these unemployment benefits. And still, we're still hearing reports. We saw it in one of Governor Cuomo's press conferences that I watched last night. There's still delays calling in to try to get your benefits for this. Unfortunately, one of the things with how the system works is you can apply and do everything online, but until you actually speak with that person on the phone, you're not going to be receiving those benefits. So we expect to see these numbers keep going. So what does that really tell us in going forward? There's a couple of things going on. The major banks are preparing for substantial defaults. And this is as a result of all of those people filing for unemployment insurance. So every bank has to have a certain percentage of their assets set on the sidelines in case there's a default or a certain percentage of their loans default. In this case, right now, your 5 major banks, Morgan, Citigroup, Bank of America, and Wells, and US Bancorp, have a combined 25 billion of assets set aside to cover losses for loans, whether they're consumer loans, their mortgages, the small business loans. So they've set aside just such a huge amount of capital to cover these losses. I think one of the things to keep in mind here is this shows how different the system is now than the last time we went through a recession. Banks were not prepared in 2008 to set aside this level of capital for losses. And the fact that they have this money set on the sidelines we think that they're going to have some issues, but it's not going to be anything like what we saw in 2008, just because they've had all of these stress tests put in place for so long, and they're able to have this money set on the side just in case they do run into these defaults.
And that's key. You know, it's a good point that Seth brought up. I mean, you're talking about $25 billion they just put aside this month for their first quarter balance sheet. They're going to continue to do this every quarter because if anything, at least for the next quarter as well, which will be from April 1st to June 30th, you know, they'll obviously, the losses are going to get worse, not better, as we try and put 26 million people, back into the workforce. And so, that's what they just set aside right now between the five major banks, about $5 billion each for losses. That's only going to go north from there for the next quarter. At some point that will slow down, but basically, we're far from that avenue.
We want to make sure that we talked about oil prices this past week because there were so many headlines and we got a number of questions on it. Like, for example, how can oil prices turn negative? Does that mean an oil company would actually pay me to take their oil? No, that's not what it means. What's going on is how oil is traded is on monthly contracts. And not to get too complicated, but with the oversupply that we're seeing right now, oil has just been driven down so heavily and supplies are so far up. I can't recall off the top of my head the name of the facility out in the Midwest that holds a majority of the U.S. reserves. But earlier in this week, they're at 80% capacity as far as just the physical oil that they could hold on site. Because one, no one's driving, and two, there's an oversupply coming from all around the world. That they're estimating within 2 to 3 weeks, that entire storage facility would be filled. So there's basically no room to put the oil anywhere. Right now, you're seeing oil has spiked up a little bit more today, but it's a unique problem to see oil just completely plummeting in this environment. But when you take a look at the circumstances, I mean, you have millions and millions of people that are spending so much less money on gasoline, and you take that into account overproduction around the world that the last time the oil prices were this low was back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, and it wasn't even, I mean, obviously it's never been negative before, but we're seeing places even in New York State where people are paying $1, $1.10, $1.25 per gallon. I started driving 21 years ago, and I was paying about $1.12 back then. So it's certainly strange. It's one of those things that you would think that would be a good thing for the consumer, but in reality, since no one can take advantage of it, we're not going to be driving the price back up by buying more of it. So it's almost not really going to benefit us to see these low prices. But we wanted to make sure that we talked about the oil prices because we had gotten a number of questions on it and what exactly does negative oil prices mean.
Yeah, and to add to that, you're also keep in mind that we just had one of the most mild winters that we've had in a long time, and so it couldn't happen at a worse time where you start to have a shutdown of the economy worldwide, obviously causing less people to drive cars and things like that. But then on top of the bad winter we had, you've got ships out there basically 100% full of crude oil sitting in the ocean, full, nowhere to go. They'll just sit out there until somebody finally calls them in to bring however many gallons are sitting on, millions, into some port to finally get it out of there. But there's just nowhere to put it. And that obviously, has a further effect on the economy. We talk a lot about, and you've seen a lot of different pundits talk about recoveries, right? We talk about a V-shaped recovery. We talk about a U-shaped recovery, and we talk about a W-shaped recovery. The problem is that, a V-shaped recovery, I would say the horse is basically out of the barn. I mean, I would think at this point, even though we basically went from, the peak of the market to the bottom of the market pretty quickly. I mean, this is a great chart because it talks about us being in a bear market. And basically, if you look at the date of the bear market, it took us 16 days for the market to drop 20%. That's the official definition of a bear market, 20% or more, right? Now, our low for the market was actually March 23rd. But when we hit a 20% drop in the market, we were at March 12th. It took us 16 days. You can see all the other times in history where we had a bear market, and that is the fastest amount of trading days to reach that bear market. So, could we actually have a V-shaped recovery where basically we went from the top of the market to the bottom of the market, March 23rd, and then snap right back up again? It can always happen, but we don't think that there's many opportunities for it to happen based on a couple of things. If you look at the last two, in October of 87 and May of 1962, those were, relatively, docile, but basically they were a good example of a W-shaped recovery. And that's typically what we think is going to happen. We don't think it's going to be U-shaped, because a U-shape would indicate that you went down, then you stayed there for a while, then you finally went up. We're past that. We've had a nice rebound since then. A V-shape obviously would still be in place, but basically we don't have enough good information out there for us to get back on track that quickly. It's one thing where if the market dropped where it went, if we went into a bear market, but we still had 26 million people that were working, you'd have a really good shot at a V-shaped recovery. We think that the biggest parameter and most likelihood for recovery is most likely this W shape, right? Where we go down and now we've kind of gone back up, but we haven't obviously gotten everything back. We've crawled back out of the bear market. So in other words, right now we're down a little bit less than 20%. So officially we're out of a bear market, but we think there's another possibility to go back down again, maybe not go as low as the March 23rd low, but we could go lower than that. It all depends. But to Seth's point, now that we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're done talking about, COVID-19. We're not. We're certainly far from it. But realistically, once we start, getting this a little bit further under control, then we start figuring and looking at the economic numbers. So if we look at 1962 and 1987's bear markets, right, 20% or more, basically, if you look at it, we started, rapidly down, then we went up, right? And then, a couple months later, didn't happen right away, but we hit a peak, right here somewhere in August. And then, boom, we started going right back down again. By October, we never got down to the lowest point that we experienced earlier in the year in June, July, but we came close, and then the market finally went back up again. 87, right? We remember that. That was a huge drop in October of 1987. We went back up again, zigzag for a while. We peaked back out here in November, and then it kind of just zigzagged a little bit back up. Finally went back down again December, didn't hit the low again that we experienced in October 19th, 1987, about 6 months after I got in this business. That was a long time ago. And then finally, we went back up again. So we think that there's a better likelihood that we are going to experience this W-shaped recovery than, let's say, a U or a V, or some are calling it a swish, right? Where basically it's sort of like the Nike swish. You go down and then go right back up, but it's kind of on a right angle. It could happen that way. That's always a risk, but we think that there's more pain, unfortunately, to experience. We're not sure exactly when that will happen, but basically at this point, if you look at it, this is really what's transpired already. We've gone down dramatically. Now we've kind of gone back up very nicely. Who knows where we're going to stop. or if it's going to start going back down the other side. But we're certainly ready for it. The question becomes, does this look like, finally a swish and now we go, right back up? Chances are it's not a very realistic picture because you've got 26 million people that are unemployed. We think that by the time that you get done, I mean, prior to, this May 1st potential reopening of the economy in New York State, we thought that maybe you had a chance to stop the bleeding if the economy reopened. But now that we're not going to reopen in New York State until May 15th at the very least, some states are obviously extending till end of May. It's going to take a while. And so, when you look at yourself and we just put out our 20th email today. You've already probably got it in your inbox. We talk to people about, when you resume your normal activities, how long is it going to be before you're willing to go to your favorite restaurant? Are you going to want to sit next to somebody that's within 6 feet of you? I'm not. When am I going to go to my next Mets game? Or when are you going to go to your next Yankees game? I mean, sitting right next to somebody, that's a far cry. My son's wedding, I mean, they live in Tennessee. Tennessee's reopening, but they're reopening where you can't have more than 10 or 20 people, in a group setting. I mean, his wedding was going to have 200 people on the dance floor where you're like, 6 inches from each other. So, there's going to be a good amount of time between getting back to some kind of a normalcy. Yes, we've all heard the story of, having a new type of normalcy, but it's going to take a while for these things to kind of get back into play. So our point is this, is that, it rules out having a swish, having a V-shaped recovery. We do think that there's a bigger probability that we will retest, that we will maybe go back down to that low level in March. Maybe it comes close to it. Nobody really knows. But what we do know is that, the way that we can take advantage of it is, it's not really called dollar cost averaging, but similar approach in the sense that, over time, we can invest in two ways. Basically, you can invest with a lump sum, but obviously if you're not going to add any more money to an investment, then you're really kind of going to live or die by the price you bought at. But most people, most of our clients had money in a retirement account. You habitually invested money on a regular basis, right? And so as the market went down below where you started, maybe went above, went down below, you kept buying all along the way. And so clearly, dollar cost averaging means that you're going to continue that monthly investment over time. And then typically it should give you a better alternative by having money invested that way versus as a lump sum. So we're used to that, right? We've all we know, if you've ever worked for a company, put money into a retirement plan, you've been dollar cost averaging all your life. We're not necessarily dollar cost averaging, but we are kind of taking money at a little bit of a time out of some key equity investments along this way. We just feel that the market has rebounded too quickly and too much. It's come back too much. When we looked at the earnings for the S&P 500, which was, a month ago in March, it was averaging 13 times earnings. And that indicated that buying into the market then was very cheap to do it. Today, with the earnings and the prices that have rebounded nicely from March 23rd lows, would indicate that you're buying into a market that is on the expensive side. And so, we think that if we get past all this COVID-19 things, that generally speaking, what's going to happen is we're going to get back to brass tacks. I've been doing this for a long time. Markets are emotional. I've seen my ton of emotional events to cause the markets to do things that nobody ever expected them to do. But in the end, everybody always comes back to the basics, which is, okay, I know the market went up or down for this reason, but if the company's making money, is the company making money? If they are, the price should eventually respond. If it's not, then the price is going to be penalized. The price is going to drop. And so, that's a key barometer as we kind of look towards some of these items. Okay. Keep in mind several things. We've been telling you this for weeks, and it's just a good time to reiterate that. When we kind of, look at your plan, or, your portfolio's return over the year, keep in mind that, we really have a plan. We know exactly where you should be in that plan. We know, and we've known for at least a year. We've been planning for a recession. Of course, we didn't expect the coronavirus to be the culprit of it, but it doesn't matter how you get there. We're there. We believe we're there. It may not be the technical definition of a recession yet, but as Seth said before with that chart with the economic indicators that we follow, and if you've been in the last year or two, talking to us, we've showed you that same chart, and you've seen, and we've talked about when those economic indicators go negative and what happens when they do. So this is not something that's all of a sudden out of the blue that we did not expect. We've had to make adjustments to our plan, but for the most part, we've been ready for this. We built your financial plan, with a recession, with these kind of things in mind, and our plan takes into account future volatility too, just making sure that we've got money spread out in a lot of categories, and because we're working off of your plan, we made sure that we were not invested too aggressively, to make sure that you're going to be able to still have your plan going in the right direction. That's really because we're able to strip the emotion out of it, making any kind of investment decisions that could cause problems down the road. Fact-based decisions make sense with our plan, right? So we found a lot of people invest too aggressively for what they need their plan to do, so that they never run out of money, and more importantly, that they can live the retirement that they want to be able to live and do. So, that's a key thing for us. So, basically, having that plan, having that process makes you feel good. It makes us feel good too. I mean, we're not worried, and we have not from the beginning. We haven't gotten a lot of phone calls because people know that their plan is in place, that we knew exactly what was going on with it. We've done 5 videos, 20 different emails. I'm sure you're sick of hearing from us by now, but we're going to keep going as long as people are reading them, as long as people are watching the videos. We'll keep putting it out. We'd rather have too much information than not enough. Even if you don't watch videos, even if you don't read the emails, some people just like the comfort to know that they're there, and that's key. So these good plans, these processes that we put in place, that we've designed over the years, it just gives people, a lot of peace of mind, helps you sleep at night, and that's key. We want to know how you're doing. We worry about you. We care about each one of you. We want to know how your health is doing how your mental health is doing. And we also want to know, whether this is affecting you and your family. I mean, like I said before, it's concerning us that we are starting to know more people that have had coronavirus. And if we don't know them directly, we know of them. And so, as more and more people get tested, you're going to have more and more people that you personally know either had it, maybe they were asymptomatic and didn't show any signs, or maybe they did have signs. Maybe they did have some real concerns with it. But that's the key thing for us, is that we care about you. We want to know how you're doing. We want to make sure that everybody around you, anyone that you care about, is also healthy as well, and that they're getting the best information they can. That's the purpose of me building such a great team the last 10 years or so, especially with adding people like Seth and TJ and Mark, who does income taxes and investment planning. The whole point of basically building a team like that is that we now have capacity. So anyone in your lives that is not getting the information, we've talked to a ton of new people that have not had any contact with their advisors at all since the beginning of this. I mean, I can't believe it, because I just would figure that everybody would want to talk to their clients and reassure them. But I don't know. I don't know what others have done. I know that we are tremendously busy right now talking to other people that we've never talked to before. Some of them, some of them you referred to us. But basically, we do have capacity to be able to help these people. And we want to, because we know what a good feeling it is to be able to have that good sleep at night, to know that everything is going in the right direction. So if there's anybody that we can help, you can point them in our direction, pass on these videos or emails to them. It's our pleasure to have you do that as well. So, the key thing for us is just, we'll get through this together. It is getting better. I mean, the news is getting better, a little more uplifting. That's the key thing. If we can kind of, keep doing the things you wanted that we're doing. I mean, wash your hands. I've never washed my hands, more in my lifetime. I'm 56 years old. I've washed my hands more in the last 3 months and probably the last, 20 years, 30 years, maybe. Shameful that as that is to admit it. But basically, still stay inside. Try and not go out. Obviously, I think it's good to be able to wear a mask. I never did it before they enforced it, but now that I have to wear it inside stores, I feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident that, I'm not, getting it from someone or giving it to somebody. So I do kind of like that. I have to say, it's gonna be a while for us to kind of take that mask off. And not do that. It's sort of like a crutch now. So it's going to be a while for us to kind of get back to normal again as well. Don't panic. I mean, obviously, market events. Look, you've been wonderful. We really have not had a lot of questions or people panicking. Part of it, I think, is because we've done a lot of communications, and part of it too is that that the planning that we've put into place prior to this was not a surprise, although the event that caused it was. Trust in the plan that we have in place, the process, and we're here. Call us if you have any questions. I mean, anything whatsoever that you have questions on. That's what we're here for that purpose, to serve you. This is week 4 of all of us are at home. I mean, yes, I'm at the beach. Wink, wink. And Seth's flying around in his broom at Hogwarts. But the key thing is for us is that, we want to hear from you. I mean, anything at all that comes up, any questions that you have at all, don't hesitate, and we'll get through this. This is going to it's coming down the other side now. We just have to hang tight, so we don't have to, all of a sudden go back into this in the summer or whatever. I know it's hard right now, knowing that we're going to probably have another 2 or 3 weeks of this. But, we're going to try and come up with, we're thinking about doing a happy hour next week, next Friday. We'll give you plenty of details with that. But we're thinking of doing a little happy hour next Friday. We'll play a little bit of music. You can bring your favorite, drink, your beverage, alcoholic or not, and we'll try and make a little uplifting as well. So so hang in there. We got another few weeks to go, but it's encouraging to see that it's working, that the numbers are coming down. They'll keep coming down as well. You're so close to the finish line. So, stay vigilant, keep doing what you're doing. And if you do that, and we all do it on our part as well, then we'll be in much better shape. So take care of yourselves. Seth, anything you want to add?
I'll just reiterate the most important thing that I think you always touch on is the planning. And we can't overstate it enough that not only do you guys have your own individual financial plans, but this is something that Dan, myself, TJ, everyone at the firm has been working on since my first day at the firm last year. So to me, this is like, it's almost a broken record, but it is important for me to, again, reiterate what Dan said, that if you don't have a plan, you're lost. And if you don't have someone that can get you on the right track in that plan, maybe, you need to reconsider your options. But going forward, I think that we have everything well positioned. And really, I do want to say also, any questions, reach out to us. It's been a pleasure speaking with everyone that we've spoken to on the phone.
Great. So have a great weekend. If there's anything that we can do, call us next week. Like I said, Nicole or Joyce or Bonnie, they're more than willing. They're at their phones, ready to pass anybody through that needs to. So don't be afraid to call for anything whatsoever, big or small. So enjoy the weekend. Hopefully the weather's a little nicer, and stay well, okay? Take care.